The next topic is online, and Martin, my colleague, will introduce MiniApp standards best practice in Europe. And it's very early in Spain, so thank you, Martin. I will personally sponsor 1 cup of coffee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon and good morning for me, early morning. Thank you for having me. I will share my presentation. Yeah. Hopefully you can all follow it and see it. So I will explain I will share some ideas and some our perspective from overseas. What we have in Europe and also in the western part of the world regarding mini apps and this new concept that in some cases we are very familiar with, but not always. It's not for all people. It's known, this concept, and it's not very popular in some places in the world. Just a very brief introduction of myself. I'm based here in this, as you can see, in Belgium, in the center of Europe, and I will explain what is the European context in terms of applications, the web applications and also native applications and the rest of the ecosystem of light apps in Europe. And also you can extrapolate these thoughts to some other parts of the world, like the US, like America, Latin America, and some other parts. But I will be focused on European context where I'm based. So I will start just showing some statistics about how the people is browsing in Europe. So this is the landscape, the statistics of the access to the web using the browsers. So you can see what, mainly most of the users are browsing using Chrome, and the 34% of the users are using Safari. And some small part, only 7%, are using Samsung Internet. You see that these three browsers are the top ones for all the people browsing, accessing the web using mobile in Europe. You see the huge difference and the less diversity of browsers than in the Chinese market, where you can find much more balanced approach and a lot of more web browsers in the landscape. So different browsers and with more balanced, more homogeneous ecosystem of browsers. So you see the huge difference with the European market and the Chinese market. And also in terms of applications, how we access, how we collect, how we install the applications in Europe. You see here the statistics, very briefly and very rough statistics, how we usually collect the information, the native applications in Europe. 61% using Google Play, installing most of the Android devices, and the 37% using the App Store for iOS devices. So you see the huge difference comparison with the stores we might find in China. More than 25 big Android stores available in China, all of them reliable, and here in Europe you can see most of them focus on only 2 big app marketplaces, although we also have some others like Huawei App Gallery, Galaxy Store for Samsung, and some others like Amazon App Store. But we still have some other app marketplaces, especially for APKs for Android. But as you can see in the statistics, are very, very few, only a small amount of them, and not very popular. We can see that. You can see in the charts. So this is a huge difference. Once how we browse in Europe in comparison with China, and also how we access the native applications in Europe in comparison with China. And how we see the light app ecosystem. I say light app like a term where we can include the mini apps. So we can refer light apps or mini apps, or also web applications, something simple to access just without installation, something with the concept like the mini app. We see that the light app ecosystem or the mini app ecosystem, most of the popular, let's say, super apps with mini apps came from China. We see, you all know these examples. We have many other super apps with mini apps than these ones, right? But these are the real successful mini apps and super apps based on a specific framework, a specific SDK for third-party developers to create content, to create services on top of these super apps. These are the top successful. But we see some others racing in other places in the world. You can see most of them based on the flags that are based also in Asia. It could be in, you see some examples like India, Korea, Indonesia, Japan in the bottom, you can see. And some others like examples in Russia, a couple of them in the US, in Latin America, in Colombia, and only one in Europe, which is Booking, which is based in Netherlands. But in reality, these light apps are not proper mini apps because they are too focused on specific services, and these services, most of them, in most of these cases, most of these mini apps are provided by the same vendor, the same company that creates the super app. Some cases, like for instance, this example, Telegram bot, is an instant messaging program or application, exactly like, well, it could be something, or not exactly, more simple than, let's say, simpler than WeChat or something similar. But for instance, you can create a specific bot using a specific API and a specific SDK to create a specific product for, in this case, this application. So the concept is similar, but the capabilities are not the same. But we can consider that these are also part of the ecosystem. So we see a huge amount of super apps in China with mini apps provided by third-party companies, third-party developers. But in these other cases, raising new super apps, they are not as complete as the ones we see in China. So this market is not, let's say, is not mature enough. And we have a lot of opportunities here. Also, speaking in terms of light apps, as I mentioned before, we can consider also the progressive web applications, so the web version of the light apps. So we can consider also that these are like several like mini apps running on top of the browser. In this case, this is the standard, the W3C standard, as you know. So we can consider that the browser is the super app to host these lighter applications, right? The concept is similar because we have a URL to access the service, to access the application. We don't have installation. The development is very simple. So we can consider as well that the web browser is a super app to host mini apps that can be created using progressive web applications. And a new concept in W3C, as you might be aware, so far in incubation, under incubation, from the community group, the web incubation community group, called isolated web apps. But it's not the same, but we also see the concept of packing one application and delivering the application in a similar way as we do with mini apps. Some other examples of light apps, not in this case, not mini apps, but also something similar without installation, very easy to deliver, like this one, KOS for the KOS operating system. So applications for this operating system based on web standards, web technologies. A new concept as well of light service, a light application called Atomic Service for Harmony OS, where you can have the same without installation. You can access a specific part of the a service or a product or some information, some content. You can reuse, you can mix and merge in some other environments. In this case, within the operating system, Harmony OS. Also, Apple created a similar concept of mini apps called App Clips. It was created a couple of years ago, introduced a couple of years ago, and it's something similar, frictionless interaction with the user, just using the operating system to provide the user with information, with small messages or small screens to interact easily with the user. So and also easy to develop and a small amount of code to create. So sharing the same concept of the light apps or the mini apps we are using. And finally, last but not least, Android, the Android Light app ecosystem. We see quick apps as one of the implementations of the mini apps, but also we have something that we can consider light applications for Android, like instant apps. It's a reduced version of the native applications, but you don't need installation. This is for Android. Another version, which is the web APK, where we can pack the web applications into an APK to deliver in Android like an Android application. But you can see it's based on web applications. And some other examples like the Amazon web applications for Fire OS, the specific Android version for Amazon devices, and some others like Android Go or several other examples. But you can see this light app ecosystem as I wanted to depict here to show that the ecosystem is very wide, very very heterogeneous, but most of these mini apps are based on these super apps, and these are the examples. The ones you have on your left-hand side are from China, and this is something that it's not popular, and we don't know these kind of applications, very rich, very easy to create, and with a lot of mini apps. We don't know them in Europe and in the western part of the world. So this is what I wanted to highlight here. Just one example, I've looked for some information about mini apps, just for you to know. Stack Overflow, this screenshot, is perhaps is the top reference forum for European and Western developers, where most of us, when we have a specific doubt about something regarding coding or about the deep details of the technology, we go to this forum to ask other developers. So this is perhaps the most popular reference forum. So if you ask for mini apps or something similar, the concept of mini apps in different forms, you only see a couple of related discussions. You see the top ones. One is not really related. The second one is a VK mini app. Is one of the examples from Russia I mentioned before. It's a very reduced version in terms of functionality. It's a Russian social network where you can create mini apps, but it's not very powerful as in terms of functionalities as you can find in the Chinese mini apps. And the rest of the entries, about 50 entries related to Tencent's mini programs. So you see that the level of penetration of mini apps is almost unknown in Europe. So this is just a real example of what we find. But we are facing a lot of opportunities, and we see interest growing all around the globe. In this case, if we in Europe, if we look for some information about mini apps using the search engines, we are watching new. We can access not only the information from Alipay, Huawei, Xiaomi, these kind of mini app vendors, already existing mini app vendors, or MiniApp implementations, we start watching new sections, new websites that are highlighting the word MiniApps. In this case, this is Rakuten. This is not from Europe. It's from Japan, but we have access to this, and you can see that Rakuten is starting new opportunities with MiniApps. Also, we see in the press and also in the big consultancy firms that are offering reports about the trends and the technologies to come for the industry. You can see also that super apps and mini apps is mentioned. This is something new in the landscape, in the technology landscape in Europe. But for instance, in this case, Gartner is one of big consultancy research firm. They offer reports for companies just with a forecast of the upcoming technologies that will be trends in the coming year. In this case, in 2023, they think that super apps would be one strategic technology for companies in the world. So you see also the interest and the upcoming opportunities for these technologies. And some other examples, as we can see with Western companies like Twitter, the well-known in Europe and the US and in the Western part of the world. It's a microblogging framework, a microblogging platform. In this case, we see some pieces of news that are mentioning and are referring this platform as a potential platform to be a super app to host mini apps. So we start hearing and watching this concept of mini apps or light applications or super apps in the press, in the reports, and also we see the companies, the private companies and the research companies investing, or at least trying to invest in mini apps. And so this proves the interest that is growing worldwide. And this is an introductory section to explain that we are starting some activities in Europe, like the Quick App Initiative. The Quick App Initiative is a forum we launched early last year, in 2020. Well, it was in 2021, and during the last year we have been doing several activities to promote mini apps, to promote this ecosystem, and to let's say to fill and to try to fill the need of the industry in Europe, basically in Europe, about these new technologies. The Quick App Initiative is hosted by OW2. This is an open source community hosted in France, in Europe, and this is open to everyone. So Huawei, along with 7 other companies and individuals, launched this in 2021 with the aim of opening this to every single person or company interested in mini apps. We call it quick apps because at that time it was the only, let's say, the implementation of mini apps we know in Europe, but the main focus is mini apps in general. Indeed, we are thinking in changing the name to cover not only quick apps, but also mini apps, progressive web applications, and all light apps I mentioned before. So the objective is opening this to everyone, raising awareness, so sharing the content, sharing the information with the developers, with the companies, with the public in general, exploring use cases and creating knowledge on top of the technology we have, so creating and distributing documents, videos, creating new use cases, or speaking with companies that could be interested in applying mini apps in their services, in their concepts. Also encouraging collaboration, inviting developers to come and to create examples, to test our technologies, the mini apps we have, the standards we are creating, and last but not least, align and implement and be very close to the MiniApp standards, the W3C standards. So this is something that we will follow always, and this is something we want to promote. So this is just an example. You can see the picture on the right-hand side is just a website, and if you want to go into, everything is open. We only have some examples, some guides. We have organized several events, but the idea is making this initiative, this working group, open to everyone, and everyone can contribute and offer their ideas and create something to move this MiniApp ecosystem ahead and to increase the quality and the usage of these MiniApps, these light applications in Europe. So just an example, in March, on March the 9th this year, we organized the Quick App initiative along with some of the MiniApp colleagues from the W3C working group, colleagues participating, and we organized the W3C event for the Spanish-speaking community, so covering Spain and also all the Spanish-speaking Latin American countries. We organized a full day of talks and workshops to promote the light apps and the MiniApps technologies. So this is one example of the activities we did. This is just the agenda, as you can see, very briefly, and the participants. As you can see, some of the our colleagues in the working group in W3C, the MiniApps, the W3C MiniApps working group participated. It was open to everyone, like Google. Thomas Steiner gave a talk about web standards in general and specifically focused on progressive web applications and how we can combine the web technologies with MiniApps and so on. Myself, representing Huawei, I gave a speech just showing the activities we do in the MiniApps working group, objective presentation of all the works we have done. And also we had the nice presentation from An Qing from Alibaba, presenting MiniApps for vehicles and MiniApps for IoT. It was very nice event. Also complemented in the afternoon, as you can see in the bottom of the slide, let's say a practical tutorial, a hackathon, a kind of workshop organized by the Quick App initiative and sponsored by some companies like Huawei that provided some prizes, some devices to the developers, to the winners of the hackathon. And it was a kind of experiment for us. So we organized a hackathon to explain them the benefits of these light apps. So we created several templates, some step-by-step tutorial to create, let's say, to create a light application informed of progressive web application. So developers had templates to create web applications and also to develop and to deploy the web applications. So at the end, after this explanation at the beginning to these groups, we created 10 groups. It was reduced, but we created 10 groups of 3 people each, and we offered the templates and some ideas. And after 90 minutes, they produced 11 progressive web applications, only in 1.5 hours. So they took the templates we provided and they implemented their ideas. As you can see, some of the examples, all of them using the same templates. But the good thing is that they put their innovation, their capabilities in inventing a new product, a new service that become a progressive web application. And after that, they could deploy the web application and learn. So this was also used to learn how a progressive web application is created. So we explained the code, we explained the specific the specific things of the progressive web applications, like the manifest to declare the metadata of the application, also the way to create the service worker to install the application using the browser. So these kind of things based on real code, based on real templates, and these are the results. So you can test the results. They are live. Some of them are let's say, the better quality of others, and you can check them in the URL above, heritageinc.info. So these were examples of applications to promote the heritage. So they could be the cultural heritage or the sports heritage or the nature heritage or of your town. So this was the templates, and they created something like this. So it was very fun. It was very successful because it was only in 90 minutes, and they created very, very good quality applications. So we have a lot of opportunities in Europe and in the Western world. Because this MiniApp concept is really new in Europe. We explain this to developers and professionals, and they don't know what it is, but they like the concept. They think that this concept is becoming very interesting. So this is an interesting technology where many companies are investing. So it's gaining traction. It's becoming very popular. And there is something that I wanted to highlight. The regulation in Europe that is very tight in terms of the market and the digital platforms is changing the landscape of the app ecosystem. So these first examples I showed at the beginning, very different than in China, is changing. We will have, in the near future, we will have a space for more app marketplaces because the European institutions are regulating this heavily. So they want to open the market. They want to have more heterogeneous and more variety of app marketplaces and different players accessing the devices of the users. So we will have more app marketplaces. We have more interoperability among all the platforms. So we will be able to install not only marketplaces, but also some other technologies in all the platforms, in all the devices. And at the end, the end users will have more freedom of choice or total control of this choice. So we are going for a total open market and interoperable market in terms of the platform. So the users will be able to access services and products on their devices using different technologies and more varied technologies. And something that, as I told you, the Quick App initiative that is focused on mini apps is here to help. So as I told you, it's something open. Everyone can join. It's for free. And you can participate from now. And developers, companies, individual citizens are invited to join us in our events, in the proof of concepts we do, the examples, the templates, like the examples I showed you before, these heritage examples. So everything is hosted there. It's open source, it's under open licenses. So everything is open, and the process of creating everything is also open. So this is my message. The OW2 Quick App initiative is here to help any idea you might have. If you want to promote something in Europe, we are here to help, and we will be glad to help because we believe that this mini app concept is new but very promising in Europe. So thank you very much for your attention, and I'm happy to answer any question if you have any.
Well, thank you, Martin's presentation. And is there any comments?
Hello, Martin. You mentioned regulation in your last page, in the last page of your slide. So I wonder, so in China, the platform, or what we call the super app, is responsible to validate this mini app is actually the wheel, for example, the wheel railway station, so people can buy their railway ticket there without any doubt that this is a fake website or MiniApp. But if MiniApp gets popular in Europe, who do you think will be responsible to validate all those apps is the real one? And also in China, the platform, the super app is responsible for all the contents inside an MiniApp, so to make sure it doesn't contain any illegal content. And this is tricky, but it's also one of the benefit of MiniApp running on a super app. And I mean, in terms of regulation, do you think this will be challenging in Europe as well?
It's challenging for the companies. It's a good point because it's challenging for the companies, as you mentioned, the super app that needs to verify that this MiniApp is at least covers the minimum standard for quality, and also it's a non-fake MiniApp, right? So this is challenging for the company, but it's something that we already do, or the super apps and the publishers already face. It's a real opportunity, because this is something that it's under control as well by the regulation. The regulation is forcing all kind of digital platforms to control these things and to fight against the illegal content, the illegal applications, the illegal products, and also protecting the user. So this is something that is explicitly said in the new regulations. So it affects not only the marketplaces, the app marketplaces, but also some other services, like, for instance, the e-commerce marketplaces. So this is something that it's indeed very concerning in the new regulations, and this is taken into account. And so the regulation itself says that these super apps, in this case, these super apps, or the marketplace of mini apps, must provide enough resources to control and to fight against the illegal content or the illegal applications. So this is challenging for the companies, but this is something that the regulation tries to protect. So it's focused on the privacy of the users and the security of the user. So this is a good point, because this is something that it's under control, and this explicitly said in the regulations.